What up, Shefty? San Fran.
What's up, Beck?
What's up, man? San Fran, they still got the three-head monsters with the quarterbacks. They say Purdy is ready to go. Do you think the younger boy will get traded before camp, or do you think they're going to stick with all three of them?
No, here's the thing. There really was never a lot of interest in Trey Lance for what they gave up and what they get back, which is not very much at all. It doesn't make sense to trade him. There was no trade market, and Kyle Shanahan has said that they didn't have any trade talks with teams. He's not going there. He's not going anywhere right now. He's there. Now, I will say this. Sam Darnold signed with the 49ers on the first day of free agency. And if there's a player signing with the team on the first day, that tells you that the team really liked that guy. And they really did like Sam Darnold. He was looking at a couple of different options. He chose the 49ers. But let's also be very clear that Brock Purdy, if he's healthy, he's the guy on opening day. He's the starting quarterback. He's the number one. If he's not, if for some reason he can't go, we'll see how Darnold and Trey Lance do in camp this summer. My guess would be Darnold has a chance to really shine and excel, but there's a lot of preseason football left for those two guys to distinguish themselves.
So Trey Lance never get on the field. We never get to see what he can do, really, because he only played, 3 or 4 games?
In San Francisco, I would say this. I would think that, look, Brock Purdy is the one, if healthy. And I think going into camp, Sam Darnold, I think, has the edge going into camp. But by the way, Trey Lance could play great. He worked over the summer with Mahomes, and I heard he's made tremendous improvement. I'm anxious to see how much he's improved and whether he can make that jump. Let's see it.
Yeah, we all are. I think, the Trey Lance story is so fascinating, and obviously you're on top of all of it that draft day, like we potentially were as well for that one time in the history of our entire show's existence. Them trading up, moving the future, trading up to 3, and then allegedly there being a little bit of a conflict between who wanted what and who wanted what.
I don't think that's right. I'm just telling you, they traded up. They traded up with the idea that they loved Mac Jones. Okay, that when they made that trade, they traded up with the idea that they were going to draft, with the idea that they're going to draft Mac Jones, while also having, I think it was 6 weeks to the draft, maybe a little less, a month or so, to look at the other prospects. And while they looked at the other prospects, they fell in love with the intangibles that Trey Lance demonstrated. He did testing and tested off the charts in terms of intelligence. They brought him in the building. The guy was ultra impressive. And even though they traded up with the idea of picking Mac Jones, while doing their work, they became enamored with this guy and the upside that he had. And I think they felt like if they take Mac Jones, then their offense, which many teams run versions of and they copy what they do, will continue to be duplicated. But it would be harder to duplicate what they do with a guy like Trey Lance, who freelances and plays spontaneous football the way he does. And so in the end, they went for the guy with the bigger upside, a guy that had great intangibles, and they went for Trey Lance. But I'm telling you, when they made the deal, the motivation initially was Mac Jones.
Yeah, in their eyes, the bigger upside, which is fascinating. And I guess you could see how the narrative that they were split on that decision could come because somebody who might not have chatted with one side for like a couple months, heard this person wanted Mac Jones. Like everybody's saying Shanahan wanted Mac Jones and Lynch wanted Trey Lance.
Yes.
And Lynch.
But let me say this. They could be split. They could have all these people. They could have all the people they want with all the opinions. In the end, Kyle Shanahan is the head coach. Kyle Shanahan, whoever he wants, I don't care what the voices say. If there are so many voices that present Trey Lance and they're so persuasive and he listens, then yes, that's what they'll do. But ultimately, every organization's got a lot of voices, but one guy in the end that makes the decision, right?
So who's the you're saying Shanahan's a decision maker?
Kyle's the decision maker there, yes.
Oh,
Him and John together. John is there to support Kyle and to do basically the way they want to run it.
Okay, so let's go on that note. So now Kyle Shanahan, John Lynch, they end up being enamored by Trey Lance. So now do you think they have enough pride, I guess they would have to at this stage, to be able to say, you know what, we don't have to get a look at this guy that caused quite a stir, quite a conversation, the way we traded, the move that was made. We were initially on this guy. We traded the future of the organization on this guy, and then we fell in love with this guy more doing this whole thing. Don't you think at some point they're going to want to look at that? Like get an actual, were we right? Like, I think for Madden games, players don't have like emotions or egos or pride or any of those things.
No.
They're waking up 94 every single day.
That's it.
Coaches, same thing. They're waking up, whatever you want to call them. It's like humans, though, when they get involved, there's legacy, there's pride, there's ego. There's a lot of potential, worry that you're going to be viewed as a failure, especially when you trade a couple of the future first-round picks on it all. They can move past not really getting an actual look at Trey Lance, or do they view that they've already kind of gotten a good, thorough look at what Trey Lance is, and they just have decided?
They have gotten a good look at Trey Lance. They've seen him every day during OTAs, during training camp, during preseason games, during 2 regular season games. They've seen it. Now, what they've seen so far may be different than what they see in the future. Players evolve. I'll go back to when Mike Shanahan was the head coach and Kyle was the ball boy, and I'm covering that team. And the Broncos drafted in the first round during their first Super Bowl year a guy by the name of Trevor Pryce, who in his first year as a first-round draft pick was no good. He was terrible. They were ready to cut him after 1 year. And then the guy became one of the best defensive linemen in the game. Players grow and evolve over time. And just because they don't pan out early in their career doesn't mean that they're not going to pan out later. Different players have different growth cycles, especially a guy like Trey Lance, who played so little college football, who sat out during the COVID years. His growth cycle is different than maybe any player we've had because of the lack of experience. So I think they're waiting at a certain point, and maybe it was this offseason when he spent time around Mahomes, that they see this growth in him. But up to date, he hasn't been as ready as people would like, right? Up to date. That doesn't mean he won't be this. We don't know. That's why I said and I'm sure they are excited to see what he can do, because he does have talent and he does have upside. But again, he's learning, growing, and evolving, and continues to do so.
That's interesting. That's fascinating. You said a lot right there. Yeah. It's almost like Shanahan cares. Yeah. Not like, hey, ready to move on from Trey Lance. It's like, when we put him out there, I want him to look good. Yeah. We made a pretty big decision here. Would like him to look good whenever we put him out there.
But you know what? Here's the thing. They did make a big decision, but they also hit on Brock Purdy.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, but Shefty, you and I both know GMs aren't like that. GMs don't view it that way. Like, there's GMs that don't care that they drafted a guy in 5th round. It's like, well, if I know, but
they traded all those picks. They traded all those picks to solidify the quarterback position, and it looks like, in a roundabout way, they have.
Bingo.
So again, let's see if Trey Lance turns into the quarterback that they envisioned, which he's been okay so far, but there's more there, and it's up to them to harness that and him to grow it. And let's see. And in the interim, they hit on a guy that has been better than they ever expected.
Let's go.
Better than anybody could have expected.
Yeah.
Absolute dog. Go ahead, AJ.
Shefty, do you have any idea what kind of the level of activity and throwing that Brock Purdy will have throughout training camp? Is he going to get much time in these preseason games? I know he's already throwing, but we don't know exactly the velocity or what he can do.
It's all been charted and planned. They have a whole game plan for him, and I don't know the specific game plan for the summer, whether – I'm sure he won't be throwing every day. Whatever the doctors have prescribed to them in terms of what is necessary for that recovery. But, they're optimistic, but don't know that he'll be ready for opening day. But there's still a whole way to go. There's a whole plan that's in place. You know how these coaches plan out all their practices for all the training camp? Well, there's a Brock Purdy plan too, probably, right? You just lay it out. I don't know the specifics of it, but everything that he does is going to be closely monitored all summer long.
That's awesome to hear, and that's very, operandus modus operandi. That's modus operandi. Yep. That is standard operating procedure for pretty much everything. Physical therapists put together a plan. You're throwing 7 balls here. Yep. You're doing this here. You're doing this here. Has he checked all the boxes? We assume he has. They said everything's going
so far.
Good. Okay, good.
So far.
Hey, that's pretty good. Hey, that's pretty good.